Hey everyone, it's Devon. It's been a while, and I am making a special appearance on Board Game Co. for the sake of reviewing what you see in front of you. I'm a little bit further away than I normally am in terms of my setup, and it's because I wanted to show you the full scope of the table. And I will likely move this camera around throughout this review so that you can see different facets of the conversation, different characteristics of this particular table that I'm discussing, so you can have more context. And this is a review specifically of the Archie GeekNSon table. But it's also a larger conversation about wants and needs and the types of things that we anticipate that we want from a table whenever we're looking for one, versus maybe what the reality is of what we should expect and should search for because of how it fits our life and our needs rather than just our wants. So let's jump into that conversation, and then we can start looking piece by piece at the different features of the Archie GeekNSon, and maybe you can determine if it is a table for you. Keep in mind, I have had this table for a little over 6 months now, and I really wanted to just live with it for a while before I came out with a review to where I could give my opinions, the things I enjoy, the things that I would change, to where I had a little bit more information than just oozing over the table. Because I think when somebody gets a product like this, when you get a luxury item at the end of the day that suits your hobby or your passions, you do get a lot of initial excitement. Just as, any Kickstarter fulfillment or any other type of item that you get when you have that consumer urge to buy it, and then you have the immediate excitement when it comes in the door. But I wanted to take time to dwell in the prospect of owning a board game table and then to ruminate on that so I could share with you my thoughts, my feedback, because they typically are larger purchases. I mean, they do run the gamut from, $1,000 to $25,000, but that's still an expensive purchase for most people, I would think. 99% maybe, but I wanted to give as much context as I could when we had this conversation, so let's go ahead and jump into it. The first thing I wanted to do before talking about the Archie table from GeekNSon is to have a quick conversation, well, quick in Devon terms, which means probably, it's 45 minutes. But really what it is a comparison of needs versus wants. I think when you go into buying a board game table or even just researching it and maybe never pulling the trigger, almost entirely the process is consumed by thinking about what you want rather than maybe what you need. For example, what I want is a $25,000 Wormwood prophecy table that sits in my dining room, and I have, a wheeled vault that rises and lowers at my bidding, and I can have a massive amount of people there and enjoy that space and have really an entire room dedicated to just gaming. That's what I want. It doesn't work in my life, though. It doesn't make sense for me to have that. I use that table for many, many things in there other than gaming. So it has to be a multifunctional table, which those can be, but at the end of the day, I don't have $25,000 to drop on a gorgeous, rare exotic wood prophecy table from Wormwood. It is too much of a luxury purchase, and my wife and I need to be more sensible about our spending rather than, dropping so much money on one item that serves one function. So that's what I want, but it's not really what I need. What I needed was a table that could fit within my office and serve a purpose as a studio table that I could film on, that was large enough to host people if I wanted to play games, if I wanted to do the infrequent thing of cleaning in my office or reorganizing and continually trying to get to a higher functional level. And I wanted to be able to play games in here. I wanted to be able to have games set up underneath this and be able to pull the leaves off when I wanted to and play a game. Or I wanted to keep whatever game was in there inside the vault locked away and play games on top of the top surface. So it's all about what you need versus what you want. And I think so many times we purchase or we research with the intent of the ideal rather than the realistic. So I needed a smaller table with a more compact footprint than maybe what I would desire, but that worked within the space. And this does serve that function. It provides what I need rather than what I necessarily want. Though I did want a board game table. So at the end of the day, it's a spectrum of how much does it check the boxes that you want it to. And I think that that is the mindset that is the most contentment. No, that's not the word I'm looking for. It satisfies you the most at the end of the day, rather than appealing to an unrealistic level that you want to get to. So now that I've broached the conversation of want versus need, it comes to a question of what can a table do for you? For example, the Archie from GeekNSon here has 6 leaves, and I can take all of those off, and then I can have the vault underneath, the play space underneath. But functional. What do I need in my space that is helpful? I need a place to store the leaves. Now, there are different approaches to this, different solutions that certain companies come up with, and one of them wouldn't work for me. So some of them have like a cube or a block that you slot the slats into, and you put the leaves in, and you store them vertically and out of the way off the table. That's appealing, it's visually nice, but at the end of the day, it's competing for space, which I don't really have a lot of. That is pricey real estate in this office, and so I don't need that. What the Archie provided as an option, which I very much took it up on, was the ability to stow the leaves underneath the table, which I can show you in a different shot when I kind of change the camera. But what that does is it allows me to get all of the leaves off the table and keep the vault open for play, and they're not taking up space somewhere else. There is the consideration, if you like the idea of a storage solution like that, if you're a bigger person, you might knock your knees against it. It depends on how, lengthy your legs are, or how you sit at a table in terms of your comfort. For example, I have a bench. I didn't get any of the other tables. That's a true fact, actually. I didn't get any of the other tables. But what I meant to say was I didn't get any other chairs. And part of that is because I have chairs already. I don't need chairs. I have both folding chairs outside. I have other chairs in the house that I can pull in to the office if I'm playing a larger game. But I have a bench, and that's really all I need. It gives me space to sit when I'm filming, and it also gives 2 people space to sit next to each other if they're playing a campaign game. Right now, stowed underneath here, I have Role Player Adventures, which I'm finishing up with my wife. And the anticipation is once that's done, I'm going to play Oathsworn with my brother. And so it fits my needs. It suits my needs. I have a bench, and it's actually a hollowed out bench. It's a storage bench that I can fit other stuff in, which is an additional benefit that I'm going to go over. But it's kind of just making sure that as you watch this video, if you have any questions, and as you start to think about, is this a purchase that's necessary for you? Necessary in the sense of, is it a value for you to get something that is a multifunctional table to suit your needs? If you game a lot, it may be something to look into for value. But ask questions that pertain to what you need and how you function, rather than just what seems nice and what's shiny and what might make you spend more money than you actually need to. So those are kind of the questions that I want you to think on and keep, at the forefront of your mind while we're going over this. All right, so from this angle, you can see the top of the table. I have the 6 leaves that are still on it, and then you should be able to see the underbelly, and from there you can see the support structure that I use to stow the leaves. They have a velvet lining on them, or a felt lining, and what that does is just kind of help protect the wood, so you're not scraping wood against any type of metal. What I do when I get the first one out, see how much loud this is going to be. I actually put the silicone pegs or whatever. I make sure I alternate them in particular spots so that they don't really get in the way of protruding, and I can make it go level. So for example, this one doesn't have it. I can just slide that. Now you are in a situation where it is wood on wood, so try to be gentle to where you're not getting it, but it's a pretty simple process to just get all of the leaves underneath the table, and then you can reveal your playing surface underneath. And obviously I'm doing this in a way that I can frame it, so I'm not maybe physically going about it in a way that makes the most sense, but that's how I would stow the leaves. And it's pretty simple, all 6 of them fit down there. I've never seen any kind of structural weakness where I feel like it's going to fall, like the supports are in there nice. And then I can open this up. And for the most part, I think it wouldn't bother anybody's knees unless you're really pulling in close and you're a very tall person. Then you might make contact with it at some point. For us, we haven't had any issues with it. I think the place you would have the most issues is if you're on either end. So if you do have this table in a situation where you have end chairs, that person might kind of come up against that support where the leaves are being stowed. It's a minor problem, and it's not one that really affects me, but it is present if that's how you decide to stow it. If I had to be completely honest, my most preferred method of storage would have been if the bench itself could fit all 6 of them. That would have had to be a pretty beefy bench. It would have needed to be quite wide to where you could have some level of protection and gaps between where you stow all of them. And then it, of course, would have to be at least as long as the leaves, which aren't really too long, but this stows other stuff, so it holds a purpose, and it's useful for storage. So I'm happy with the bench as is, but like an ideal world, I would have gotten 2 benches where one of them could stow all of the leaves and then one of them could be useful for storing all of the other elements here. So I've got a game underneath here and I'm able to keep it at all times. And then I have all of the different modular sections that make up kind of the armrest and outer structure of the table, which I'll show you in a moment. But I just wanted you to kind of see how relatively simple it is for me to put stuff under there, but it could prove problematic for some people based off of where you have the table. I use it for studio purposes a lot, so I don't have a ton of people around it. And when I do have people, it's low player counts. You know, I'm playing 2 people at a table. If I have larger groups, I typically go to my dining room, and we don't necessarily pool out large table sprawling affairs unless I'm lucky. So this kind of the setup from this angle. I just wanted to show you the process of getting the leaves stowed away. Again, this is not something that necessarily comes with every single table. It is an additional option, but I prefer it because, again, I'm limited in space in my office, and I like the idea of maximizing the efficacy of where I put things. So storing it out of sight underneath the table, that's a bonus for me. And it is still enough room under there to stow games because I have too many games. All right, so I've opened up the vault. I've revealed my game. You know, for the eagle-eyed viewers, maybe you even know where my wife are in the game of Role Player Adventures, and you know what's happening. There might be some light spoilers here if you're interested in playing the game in terms of just seeing a map with cubes on it. It wouldn't really spoil anything for me, but just, I guess, look away if you want to do that. I don't think I'm going to go to the editing process of blurring it, but just heads up, this is a game in progress. So I have undone some of the siding here. I like how wide these armrests are. They provide a nice place to rest your forearms. And, you know, I'm a fidgeter, and so I hold things and I mess with my face or, you know, relax. And so it's a good space to do that. It includes the outer width of the table, the wood, and then the cushion actually sits pretty flush with that. So it's quite comfortable for me to be able to look over the table and to relax and look down. I don't know how it would be for everyone, but the particular height of the bench and then the height of where the top of the table is once you take the leaves off, it is a comfortable height for me. It feels good. I'm 5'11", and at that height, I don't have any problems. It's comfortable for me. My wife, who is 5'7", is pretty comfortable as well. So, you know, within that range, this particular setup works. You can, you know, of course, find your own adjustment of whatever chairs and, you know, combination of height here is functional or good for you. But it is just something to keep in mind is how comfortable you are at the table. There have been some tables from other manufacturers that I have been around. I'm not going to say who they are because, you know, maybe that product works for someone else. But for me, the particular height, the sizing of certain parts of the manufacturing on the edges of the table have made how I sit and how I interact with the table uncomfortable. I think the best version of a table allows you to forget that you're at the table and just focus on the game and what you're doing. And sometimes it's hard to, I guess, get that spatial element out of my brain because it's just not in that Goldilocks zone, and this one works for me. So I like this. But if you don't want the fabric, or if you have a game setup that is more involved, or it needs some other elements to assist in the best gameplay, this is a modular build. You can really kind of make it what you want. Now, you can purchase none of these side pieces, or you can purchase a full table's perimeter of them. And I mean, I guess that if you do take out this centerpiece and all of this, you can put kind of like the play mat that I have in the box here, or in the bench that's stowed. You could pull it out and use it, but I like this setup. This is my preferred way of gaming. It gives me enough room for comfort as using a table, and then it gives me enough room for my games. Now, maybe I'll pull out something that's more of a table hog, and I do kind of need that square footage back, and so I'll have to take out some of these. That's very possible. I mean, I have some big games in my collection, so that's a likelihood at some point, but for right now, it hasn't been problematic. And I like the amount of depth that I get here as a user. There's a whole bunch of things that you can turn this into. I don't normally have this arrayed as I do now. I'm just kind of having it here so I can show you the full setup. Every single one of these compartments has kind of some grooving that you can lay other components into, or other elements of the modular setup, or it has like an inset wood piece on the bottom of all of these that you can appropriately slot that away. So for example, if I was playing a game where I wanted to hide what I had, you know, I can keep that over here in my play area, and then I've got a blocker. And so maybe that's more effective than some of the trifold paper pieces that you get in a game if you're trying to hide certain resources. So you can put something like that up. There's another one of those plastic bins over there. It just kind of overhangs. And so maybe larger components or some other elements of a game that you want to keep near you, but you want to keep off the table is possible. You can get toppers that just fit small component trays or something else, allow you in there. This one is more of a card rack to keep some layered cards there. You could honestly leave this open and just put cards in the groove here. There's a lot of different ways that you can find your preference in how this build is. This particular one has metal component holders, so you can keep things away, or you could put a drink in. You can put a beer in this if you're okay to drink around your games. Additionally, if you don't want it inside the table, you've also got these large, rather chonky cup holders that can fit, a coffee mug if you want, or you can fit something deeper if you don't want it to sweat into the wood. You have the metal one, or you can take that out, and if you have kind of like a larger wine glass, you might be able to fit in there and keep in. I don't think I have any piece in the bench that is got the kind of like neck groove to fit a wine glass naturally that way, but you could theoretically fit one there. And then you've got your play surface. I've got a padded velvet. I kind of went with the blue theme in honor of my good friend Alex, and so that's the setup that I have. Again, it's modular. You can create it however you want, or you could forego that and not worry about it and just get on gaming and not care about any of the, functional add-ons that you could, decide upon. Don't really know what I'm saying there. All I'm saying is it's up to you. And for me, I kind of appreciate this nice, clean look right here. And so that's what I use typically. And that's these nice cushioned, padded sections that top off that. Shout out to my good friend Joe at One Sharp Joe, because he's got my favorite component holders. That's what I have right there. All right, I wanted to give you a sense of maybe what the play space looks like when you have a game out, and then the modularity that can be up to you in terms of all of the pieces that you can add. going back to the conversation of needs versus wants, keep in mind how you play. And the reason why I'm saying that is when you get to accessories, a lot of times like the table itself is what you need. And what you want is every single thing. It's like a Kickstarter. You want to go all in and get all of the goodies, all of the deluxe accessories, everything, so that you don't have any FOMO. But be aware, be mindful of how you play as a gamer, because quite possibly you might never need any of these elements. I like the fact that I can pull cards up, but I don't need 8 ways to store components. So, it's not a necessity, and just be aware that you can be discerning in your purchasing and figure out what is best for you as a gamer and also as a host. I'm assuming there are plenty of solo gamers out there, but I'm assuming that if you're interested in a table, the odds are either other people in your family or friends or anything like that are people who game with you. And so in that case, you're likely someone who has people at their house to play games if you're looking at a table like this. If that's the case, keep in mind what you want, and then also what your hostees, guests, that's the word, what your guests might want. I guess that's coming from someone who functions as a host a lot. But know what you want, know what you need, and know where appropriate compromise is in the middle. Time to look at this bad boy for a second. So this is the bench. This is sneakily one of my favorite parts of the entire table. And it's not the table itself. Seating arrangements may be a afterthought for some people, but it is a very intrinsic part of the gaming experience because your butt is parked somewhere for quite a while. What I love about this bench is how deep it is in terms of the full length of it. That doesn't make sense. Those are 2 different spatial dimensions, depth and length. So anyways, it's got a lot of room for your tush is what I'm trying to say. And I like that. I also like that it's wide enough comfortably for 2 people. It does have this wooden outside here, so theoretically you could stretch and maybe get 3 people on there if you're pushing it for space and comfort and personal privacy. But it does fit 2 very comfortably, which is what I use the table for gaming, because it's kind of like my campaign table in addition to the studio use. The other element that I like is the fact that it's got storage space. I'm a big fan of that. As I mentioned earlier, I do wish that I had a second bench that could just fit all of my leaves and I could just slot them in. That would be my preference because it gets them out of the way and then it doesn't compromise any space underneath the table. But I would need a second bench for that, and I don't need a second bench right now. It wouldn't fit as easily in the space unless I tucked it completely under the table. So for now, this is totally fine. I do wish there was a little bit more like storage structure or organization inside of here. Now, granted, what I have in here is just all of the extra table stuff that I'm not using. I could put more things in here. I could put games in here. So that's an option for people. I do think that a bench is just an underrated seating option. I prefer it in many ways to chairs because I can work on posture, I guess, but also they're just typically more comfortable long term because the cushion or the seating arrangement is a little bit more flexible. It doesn't have a drop off, at either side. So I do like benches a lot, and I'm a fan of it here. And in terms of what makes the most sense for me, this is it. Maybe that isn't the case for you. Benches are not for everyone, but I do really need to work on pronunciation there. Benches are not for everyone, and the fact that it doesn't have the most optimal storage for what I have stored in it is a very low point of critique for me, because other people will store different things in here, and so they would want different storage options. It makes more sense to leave it cavernous so that people can put whatever they want in here, and I can't really fault GeekNSon for how the decision they made on this. I do wish I could store the leaves in here, but again, it's a minor pain point that is really specific to how I use the table and not how everyone would use the table. But yeah, so this is the bench, guys. Hope you like it. It's a bench. And that kind of brings us to the end of the conversation. There are other things I could talk about that some people might find very important or valuable to them. They're not as much to me. I could talk about the quality of wood. This is more of a natural style. It doesn't have a gloss finish or anything on it. It doesn't have kind of, a lacquered protectant on it. It's more natural wood, which I'm honestly okay with. I think that will mean that when I inevitably do ding it up, that it will be okay and it won't bother me, and I won't feel the need to find wood repair pens and crayons and keep it blemish free as much as possible. I'm all right for it to be a little bit more rough from a texture standpoint. You could talk about maybe the complete seamlessness or occasional stiffness of some of the leaves going together. Again, I think that is just going to be the small variances in manufacturing and building these tables, and I acknowledge that, and it doesn't really bother me. At the end of the day, it's not it's not a breaking point. It's not a, I'm trying to think of the term. It's not a deal breaker for me, so doesn't bother me. So it may bother other people. Doesn't bother me. Again, it goes back to what I need, and I needed a functional table for my studio, and this serves that purpose, and I'm very grateful for this table, very happy to use it, and trying to think if there are other considerations that you guys would want to know. The leaves, the weight of them are all manageable. They're not overly heavy. They're not overly burdensome. Really, again, it's a space thing for me. I really don't want to ding up any of the wood or any of the pieces. So I guess handle them quite carefully when I'm moving them from the top of the table to the storage space underneath and vice versa. But if you have more space, maybe you can move them a little bit more freely than I can. I try to be precise with my movements. And, it fits comfortably under there. I like the fact that they thought of the felt lining to not scratch the wood. That makes me appreciative. I do think that for someone like me, the modularity is almost too paralyzing. There's too many options. The accessories are something that I would encourage you to just be, mindful of. What are you realistically going to use? Because I, at the end of the day, have quite a few pieces that I'm not sure I will ever use. Maybe there are edge cases where there are games and it's so pivotal to the game that I really need this one particular way of keeping my resources or my components or hidden information away from other players. At the end of the day, though, I have played games for years and I've never needed some custom solution that perfectly fits one game. Most of the time, a table is a table and you play a game on a table. But it really just comes down to, why do you want this table? Or why do you want any other table? The Archie GeekNSon is what I have, and it's what I'm happy with. But maybe you're on the market or you're on the hunt and you're searching for the right one for you. And I can't really say what that's going to be because it comes down to your life. And I'm not privy to that for the most part. I know quite a few of you on the internet now. But you're the best judge of what will work for you, so I can't speak to that. I can say that for what it provides, the Archie from GeekNSon is a good build quality. I think that the table was very easy for me to build solo. I didn't have any help doing it. It does encourage you to use help. I'm rather stubborn in those things, whether it's an IKEA build or whether it's any kind of piece of furniture. As long as I have an instruction manual, I'm pretty, I guess, bullheaded at wanting to do it myself. And I didn't have any issues with this. I was able to get the leg, supports up. I was able to get the bench made. I was able to get all the elements going and figure out what went where. And so it's pretty intuitive. It's pretty simple for someone. If you're on your own, you should be able to manage this. If you've never constructed anything, I'll grant that maybe you should find someone to help you out or just be careful when you're going through the instructions. But it was easy to build. The quality of the build is sturdy, and I don't feel like I'm going to have any issues with this table. There have been other tables that I have used from friends' houses that didn't feel like they were the greatest build quality. Pieces were just off in ways that didn't make. Sometimes components were, like sometimes essential hardware wasn't there. So that was not the case with the Archie. I had everything I needed. And there are particular, I guess, accentuations or nuances to this company and this table that I like. I like the bench. I think it's a really nice bench. I sit on it comfortably all the time. And maybe the bench won me over, but for my sake, I enjoy it a lot. I do think that this would serve well as a dining table. It doesn't work in my house with my life as a dining table option, but if that table broke, I could move this one in there and it would serve its purpose well. It does have those kind of like moisture barrier liquid protectants in between each of the leaves to block spills, so it does have that option. And then it's a good height. And as I showed you, there's cup holders and stuff. So even if you're not really a board gamer and you just want to build a puzzle and drink some beers and hang out with your friends, or maybe if you're, a dexterity gamer and you just want to throw some crokinole out on the table and start playing, it can serve all of those purposes. So it could be a dining table if you want it to be. It could be a regular hangout and kind of endure the abuse if you want it to. It works for me. I'm happy with it. And that's really all I got. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. Like I said, I've had this table for 6 months now, and I wanted to use it for some time before thinking about what I liked and what I didn't like. And for the most part, I'm a fan. I do think that it's affordable. It's in the range of an expensive dining table. Obviously, you can build your own dining tables, or you can find, particle board ones, and you can find cheaper options, and you can even find good options that aren't board gaming tables. This is not outside of the realm of possibility, though, for most people's budgets, which I appreciate. I think there are options for this, between $800 or $900 and $1,500. I guess that gets into a different conversation of what is affordable. And like at the beginning of this video, I said this is a luxury good. It is. You don't have to have a board gaming table. But if you want one, and if you're intending to spend the money, this is within a financially safe range of spending that should be okay for most of the people that are searching for these things anyways. If it's outside of the realm of your finances, don't overspend just because you want something. But if you are already searching for this, if you're already researching different tables, this is a good option. I'm happy with it. I will use it for years to come because it suits my needs. And that's what I think you should be looking for. All right, this is the Archie table from GeekNSon. Big shout out to Alex. He's a wonderful human. I like him a lot. He's a very good friend. And without him, this wouldn't be possible. So thanks, Alex. You're an awesome guy. And I think I'm in control of editing this video, so you can't edit that out. Thanks, Alex. You're an awesome guy. 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 And I love all of you guys, even those that I haven't met before, because you're good people at the end of the day. If you have any questions, let me know. Happy to answer them. Happy to get into the weeds on certain aspects that maybe I glossed over in this video, or maybe you'll bring up questions that I hadn't even considered in terms of discussing aspects of this. Happy to jump into it with you, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.